Well, good afternoon, everyone. I get to talk to you after lunch, so hopefully I can get everyone kind of ready to ask a lot of questions. So as you can tell, I'm here in London from the US in Atlanta, Georgia. And so if you don't know, that's where Coca-Cola, Delta Airlines, UPS, we have a lot of the global corporations are in that location. So I've been at Accenture for 21 years. I know I was very young when I started. So I have not always been in procurement and supply chain, but as I'll talk to you today, I think I have one of the coolest roles at Accenture. So when I'm done talking, I want to make sure that everyone thinks that I have one of the coolest roles. So I think when you're here today, we're all talking about procurement and supply chain. So what we've seen over the last couple of years is that supply chain has kind of had a little up and down. So we've seen it been disrupted. So let's talk about it. So it's been a little chaotic. It's been a little crazy. We didn't know where some of our things were coming from. We didn't know what was going to happen. But guess what? It doesn't all have to be bad. We can create new opportunities. So when we think about things at Accenture, we look at it as there's a lot of chaos going on. Not in my day-to-day life. That's what I'm not saying. Yes, it is. But with that, we can find many different opportunities. So I'm going to talk today, and I hope you have lots of questions, about where are some of those opportunities? Have you really looked everywhere to find some of those opportunities? And hopefully I'll give you a new way to kind of find some of those. So when we think about maybe, 10 years ago, we were all offshoring everything. And it was great. We offshored a lot of BP operations, a lot of outsourcing, and it was really great. A lot of corporations were able to the way you do that. It doesn't mean one or the other. It doesn't mean you can't do globalization anymore. It doesn't mean you have to do onshore, but it means we can do it together, right? So we're all gonna work together today, right? All right. So how do you reinvent this? Digital. You're gonna do everything automated, and it's gonna make us a lot more smarter, right? So at Accenture, we have all of our innovation hubs. And so in our innovation hubs, we have a lot of robots that do everything. But it takes people to program robots. Okay, so if you know the answer to this question, you can't say anything. I'm from Atlanta, and we have a robot bartender. Anybody want to know her name? Guess her name. You can't say it. Any guesses for her name? I wish. Not Alexa, but she works with Alexa. Mixie. It's pretty good, right? There were some young analysts that were in our office, and they're thinking about what would make their life easier, what would make things work better with things that are already there. So it's not reinventing the wheel. So someone said Alexa. So we're going to see how can we get that to work with Alexa. So it's not about one or the other. When you're looking at reinventing your supply chain, you're going to look at how can I take something, build upon it, and leverage it. So we have Accenture, again, one more question. How many employees does Accenture have globally? You can't answer if you know. Any guesses? Oh, somebody's looking online. 721,000 employees globally. So when you have that many employees, you're going to get so many different ideas. You're going to have so many diversity thoughts, right? So as you saw, part of what my role is I lead our global supplier inclusion and diversity side. I have Ben Nagobi here, who leads our internal side of it. So what we do is I get a chance to find some of the most amazing small, medium-sized, diverse-owned businesses. I get to help develop them, and guess what? I get to integrate them into our supply chain. So when you see all the uncertainty that's going on in the economy right now, or at least that's what they're telling us, when you see the uncertainty, you start to do what? You pull back. You're like, oh, maybe I'm not going to do that. Maybe I'm going to digitize something. Maybe I'm going to automate something. But that doesn't mean that you forget what you were doing over here. So maybe we need to build upon some of that. And maybe you don't know where to do it. How many of you in here are with a small business? Anyone with a small business? Guess what? We can come and find that innovation from that small business. So when you think about it, you have this great big company named Accenture, like that plug. And with Accenture, you're coming in, you're gonna get all these 721,000 employees. That might not be what you need right now, but we have these great partners that we've worked with. So we go and develop many of our small-owned businesses. They can be women-owned, they can be Indian-owned, Asian-owned, LGBT-owned. We can work with these businesses, develop them, help them grow their practice, and then we can begin to integrate them into our supply chain. So now when you start to see some of the globalization that might be coming in, then now you can come in and take some of that local. So I'll give you an example. So one of our consumer clients was having just an issue with getting some of the supplies they needed from global areas. So we know there's unfortunately wars going on, different disruption in the supply chain. So we know they needed to do things. So what were we able to do? We went and found some amazing local farms that were in communities that you knew about, but maybe we just needed to bring that to your attention. Now working with these small farms, they're able to begin to do something. Will that solve the whole global issue? No. But will it give you this supplement to be able to do that? Why? Why should you do that? The University of Washington did a study. For every $1 million you give a small or medium-sized business, they create 10 jobs within the community. So now you're giving the economic impact. You're now going into communities that you might not have went in. You might drive by. I'm from a very small town in Arkansas in the US, and I drive by all these farms. Would see them? I don't need them. I started with Accenture in New York. I don't need to see these small towns. I'm working on this consumer goods client. I'm looking at all the farms. What do? I found a small woman-owned farm in my hometown. I was so excited, realized that went back generations. So now being able to introduce them to my client, they're now hiring more people. They're now putting that back into the community. So isn't that what we want? Don't we want to have a society where people are working? So I'm just saying, let's think about, be very, innovative on where you're going to find some of these small businesses. So let's talk about the intelligence side, right? So everybody wants to be, we have people online. So we're in the hybrid. So hello to the online audience. We did a summit with a woman-owned business, AP42, and we wanted to find a way to really do something a little different. But we're big Accenture. We don't really need this small business, but she brought some innovation that we just hadn't really looked at yet. So what were we able to do with her innovation? We were able to partner together and deliver the summit where I interviewed our CEO, Julie Sweet. So all of this fits into her 360-degree value, where we want to make sure that we're bringing value to our clients, to us, and to our communities. So Imelda, who works at AP42 or owns AP42, made me a hologram, shaved off 10 pounds. I like that technology diet. And I was now able to do a summit over 4 continents, 3 days, 800 people. So don't think just because someone's small there, they don't have innovation or you can't work together. So as you're thinking about all the disruptions that we're seeing in the supply chain, let's see how we can partner together. So we've talked about the disruption in the supply chain. What's the other shortage that we've seen? I've kind of told you on the screen here. Labor. Does anybody have any challenges with workforce? Well, when you're looking at some of the workforce and we're thinking about the things that we're doing here, we look at our traditional places. So again, been at Accenture 21 years, 3 college degrees. My dad was like, technology, you've got to get a skill. So I went and did a degree in engineering, computer science, went to graduate school, did my MBA. That's not going to help this shortage now, is it? If that's the only place that we're looking for talent. So we see now, when we did a survey of around a lot of executives, 40% of them now saying, we are having trouble finding it. But I just said on that other slide that we want to go digital and we want to do all this automated. Where are you going to get the workforce from? So one of the things that we were able to do was we have an apprentice program as well. And in this apprentice program, we start to look in underrepresented communities. So when you think about your whole ESG component, and when you're starting to looking at the social side, you're going to go into areas, and now you're looking at groups of where you might not have looked at, that might not have that 4-year college degree, but can you not train them those technical skills? Can we not close this gap of 40% of IT workers? Can we begin to go in and look and be able to train some of those skills? So now it just might be looking at a different way. When someone asks me, how do I look at diversity? Am I giving the job to this person because they're a woman or because they're African American? No. You want the person that best fits the role. So diversity is like casting a wider net. So you might not meet someone in your everyday walk, but if you cast that wider net, then you'll be able to move this from 40%. So when you look at skilling the workforce of the future, right? So everybody is thinking the future. I think someone asked me today, where do you see the supply chain and procurement in 5 years? Who thinks out 5 years now anymore? We do 1 year, 2 year, right? We don't ever think of what we're doing 5 years out. So when you start looking at how are you going to skill that workforce of the future, you're going to start looking at where are the skills? Where do I need them? So if you look at it here, 53% are offering now 1 to 3 technical courses to their employees. So what are you doing? You're reskilling them. How many of you always hate to take that training that you have at work? Am I the only one that hates to take all that required training? Yes. So now when you look at it, that required training could be upskilling your workforce. So wouldn't it be great if you could learn something different? I know we don't want to learn new things sometimes, but make it really cool when you do it. One of the things that we have is our cybersecurity. I don't care how you teach cybersecurity, it's never sexy. It is the most boring thing that you can ever teach. If you've ever saw, and I don't know if they had it here, the TV show 24, with, I think it was Keith Sutherland, I think the actor. That's how we do our cybersecurity training at Accenture. They make it and we call it Hackerland. And it is literally a TV show. So I now want to go in and see, did the person leave their laptop there? Did they give out their passwords? What did they do? How can they do this scenario? But by upskilling and making your training different, you can really keep your employees there and bring that number down. 24% are paying their workers to get a 2-year associate's degree. So in the US, and I know in other areas, you have your 4-year degree you get at the university. That was the only way you could come into Accenture, into one of our big consulting roles. Not anymore. People are paying to get your associate degree because now you can go in and train those IT skill sets. You can do those cybersecurities. You can do the machine learning. You can now come in. So we're taking that number down on the workforce. Now, 11%. 11%. Man, if my dad was here, I'd be like, you see how low that number is to tell me to get all those degrees? Are willing to go and even go beyond that 2-year degree. So what we're saying now is we've seen the shortage of the workforce. Maybe some people don't want to work, but I don't know. I love this generation, Generation Z, as they're called, right? I like to think of myself as an experienced millennial. Somebody's going to take my term, right? In this Generation Z, what they do is they're no longer wanting us to put out this statement. They're like, if we put a statement on our website, they're like, are you actually doing that action? So if we're out there saying, we can't find the workers, we can't find anyone in IT, this generation's going to challenge us. They're going to say, you're not looking. You need to change your model. What worked 10 years ago might not work this way. Guess what? If you bring in someone who might not ever thought they can work at a large corporation, that person is extremely hungry. They really want to come in and prove that if given a chance, that they can really contribute to the company, to society, and really do something great and get rid of that stat on that you can't find anyone in the workforce. All right, so now I've talked about there's no disruption in the supply chain because you got all these great businesses you can find. No shortage in the workforce because you can go to all these underrepresented communities. What's right here in the UK? So I was just here last month. Yes, last month. And the Minority Supplier Development Council UK had their conference here. 16 years. Does anybody know about that organization? All right, I'm going to have more hands after this. So with that organization, Mike Shaw, what he did 16 years ago was wanted to come to the UK and show people they can work with small, medium, diverse-sized businesses. He was doing his thesis, but he found there was such a gap and such a benefit because he found the innovation. He found that they could be more nimble. He found that they could collaborate with large organizations. So it's 16 years later and he's still here. So what we've seen now is that it goes beyond the UK and Europe. So now we're seeing in Germany, they're using immigrant-owned businesses. You see in France, they're using businesses with people with disabilities. Accenture did a research paper and it's called Getting to Equal. It's money that corporations are leaving on the table by not employing people with disabilities. So to think about, again, casting that wider net to help out with your workforce shortage. We sponsor an innovation challenge. This year, I was blown away. There was a young guy who was in, I believe he was in, and I probably will get this wrong, so I'm not going to say where, but he ended up having to leave his country and going to a refugee camp. And he was an engineer. He was able to get out, go to school, become this engineer, working for this Fortune 500 company, doing well, making this money, living his life. He went back and he saw these women who were just cleaning and washing clothes all day. So what did he do? He went and made a portable washing machine. So to think of the innovation that you can get from that one small, but how many lives did he change? So that's where I want you to think about as you're looking at all these different disruptions. You're starting to see it doesn't have to be this way that it was last year, or it doesn't have to be this way it was 10 years. Start thinking about that innovation that you get. If you look at all the tech companies that started, they all started as small businesses that were entrepreneurs, right? So think about all of that. One of the things that we've done in our program of 20 years, again, I said I was young when I started, we've been able to position and help a lot of our clients as you're building out your strategy and we're developing a lot of these businesses. We can help you come in and find these businesses. No, you're not paying me, you're paying the diverse businesses. So I know Accenture sells water to the ocean, so probably all of our clients are in here. But what we want to do in this time of economic uncertainty is to show you there are other options to bring in a lot of small businesses that you can partner with. My last thing here, if you get a chance, there is, and I don't know if we'll be able to send out the slides, but there is a report online where MSD UK has given some stats. And again, this is when you start to think of why you should leverage these small and diverse businesses into your supply chain. There's about 3,000 of these small businesses just right here in the UK. So think about when you see this on a global basis. They've helped over 120 of these large Fortune 500 meet their goals, exceed their goals, do something new, do some innovation. But guess what? They've generated more than 1 billion. So we all are now saying what we put in those statements, that we want to help everyone grow, we want to create economic impact, and we want to make better communities. We want the world to be better. That's what we're all doing in the whole ESG initiative. We want the environment to be better. We want the economy to be better. We want the communities to be better so we can leverage them. The last thing I'll say, and I'll see if there's any questions. So this couple here were the first ones to really go out and do the vaccine that was developed for COVID-19. Whether we feel on that either way, it's really great when you come in and you see that now we're all talking about a COVID vaccine, we're all talking about things to do. Small couple, entrepreneurs. There's innovation in each one of us. Wish I had some great ideas, but I will leave you with this. This is my team here. We're all over the US, Amsterdam. If there is anything that you need, you can call on us. But before I do that, I just know you guys have so many questions that you want to answer, that you want to ask me. I'll answer them. If I know the answer, I'll give you one. If I don't know the answer, I'll say we're out of time. So any questions that we have right now? Yes.
You spoke about going out to small suppliers and growing them. At what point do you feel you have a responsibility in terms of the proportion of their business that you make up? Is that a risk that you're bringing to them, and is that for you to manage or for them to manage? Very good question. It always comes in if a small business is too risky. So as we work side by side with them, and as we develop them, right? We have one of our suppliers here with VDART that we developed, and they'll be speaking tomorrow. One of the things that we want to do is to understand what that skill set is and what they might bring, like literally peel back the layers and understand what is it that they're doing. So that's where we're going to help them start in that sweet spot, but then grow as we're side by side. If we're growing side by side, I can pick up that risk. Because if he decides to just go to the beach one day, guess what? We're right here. They're side by side, so we can now pick up that risk. So the goal is to take that time. It doesn't happen overnight. I knew him 4 years before we started to actually begin to work together, because if I'm going to bring that into our supply chain or our client's supply chain, I want to make sure that risk is not there for us or our client. Great question. Any other questions?
This will have to be the last question, I'm afraid.
Oh, okay, sorry.
If you could please try and keep your question and answer brief as well, please.
Hello, Nedra. This is Rohit Burdayar from VDART. My question is, so DEI has been almost table stake requirement for Accenture in the past, but how are you qualifying suppliers on environment and governance?
Oh, great question, and I know it'll be really quick. So for those of you, DE&I, I don't know if it's just one of the terms we have, but diversity, equity, and inclusion. And how are we doing this in the environment? So it's a part of what we've been able to do, and what Accenture does is really build some great tools. So I do have the genius that's sitting right here in the front row. Raise your hand, Ben. Ben was able to build one of our tools, the Sustainable Procurement Hub, that's built around blockchain, that's actually able to help large and small suppliers collecting their data and understanding, of course, being GDPR compliant, and making sure that we can go in and help them learn what is their carbon footprint, what is the human rights, that's everything that's going. So we can definitely connect you, and you'll be talking with him tomorrow. So I just want to say thank you all very much for allowing me to share what we're doing in procurement and supply chain. Thank you.
Thank you, Nedra.